right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Dharma Digs podcast, a podcast in pursuit of purposeful living. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Winchester, and I'm grateful that you've decided to stop by and take a little bit of time once again out of your day to tune into this podcast, so thank you for being here. Today's conversation features a good friend of mine now by the name of David Lee Arrington, and Day Lee is what many people know him by here in Charlotte, and I've just been really grateful to have developed a relationship with Day Lee. He and I crossed paths when we were working on Confluence, which is was a music festival and really more of an industry event at the Whitewater Center here outside of Charlotte a couple of years back. And I've followed along and stayed in touch, and he and I have kind of watched each other on different paths here in Charlotte and around the scene, and I'm forever inspired by all the work he's doing. Day Lee is the co-founder and co-owner of Hue House, which is a creative agency here in Charlotte, but he is also the co-founder of the Fair Play Music Equity Initiative, which is something that has been really needed and necessary here in the market, and it's really cool to see all the work that both Day and all of his team members are doing there with Fair Play. And to give you a little more background, of course, Day will, he'll share his side of this, but I'll tell you really quickly what the mission of Fair Play is, and that is to advocate for a fair music ecosystem here in Charlotte by engaging venue owners, event producers, and organizations on the value of inclusivity in music. And that's something that I don't think gets talked about enough, about how we can all come together as an inclusive scene and really help lift Charlotte up on more of a national level. So it's really cool, all the work he's doing, and I'm excited to share the story with you today. A couple other, as I always do, throw these little show notes in. Thanks to Leo Solis, as always, for lending me his music. I appreciate you, Leo. Hope you're doing well. And for those that might be new listeners to this podcast or viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, tap that subscribe button below if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever it is you're getting this, drop a review and or follow, and come find me on some social media platforms as well. You can follow along at Dharma Digs on Instagram and Facebook, and head over to the website, dharmadigspodcast.com, if you have any recommendations or suggestions for content or conversations you'd like to hear. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. Without further ado, let's get into today's conversation. And yeah, thanks for being here. Let's roll on into it. Cool. What's up, Day? Welcome to Dharma Digs Podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate being here. It's good to catch up with you.
I know it's been way too long since we've just talked in general. So as I mentioned before we got going here, I appreciate you, A, taking the time just to catch up, but B, allowing me to turn this into a conversation that we can share with the general public. So much appreciated, man.
Absolutely. They are welcome.
So I gave a quick intro already, but why don't you just kind of fill everybody in from your perspective on, what is the life in Day Lee like these days and what you're up to?
Well, I mean, we're in COVID time, so all of life, or at least the majority of it, happens at home, and sadly, a lot of it happens in this room. So from family, married life, to work, to music, to all the things I have my hands in, sadly, it all happens in one place right now. But thankfully, I'm able to be a part of some pretty dope stuff, man. From Fair Play Music Equity Initiative to Hue House, creative agency I own with a couple partners, to, honestly, even thinking about the difficult aspects, even being able to school my girls from home, which, isn't my favorite, but being present with them and them being healthy and the family being healthy, man, is all something to be thankful for. So that's what a day in the life of Day Lee is looking like right now, man. Nice. It's all layered and stacked on top of each other in this house, man.
Yeah. I know the times are strange, and it's like thinking back over the last year, how quickly it came and went, but at the same time, it feels like this whole COVID pandemic has been like years now. So I know we're all itching to get back to whatever the new normal is going to be after this. But
Yeah, you mentioned obviously fair play, and that's kind of what prompted my outreach a few weeks ago. Is really to just catch up with you and see what's going on with fair play, and we'll talk a little bit about Hugh House as well. But I'd love to hear what you've got going on and maybe what's new over in the world of fair play as well.
Got you. So, well, for those who don't know, Fair Play Music Equity Initiative, where we have a founding team of 9 individuals, and kind of the birth of it was out of Music Everywhere Conversations, which is an initiative here in Charlotte to pretty much, how would I say, cultivate, build, and sustain a thriving music community here, which has involvement on the city level and, all the ivory towers uptown. I mean, has a lot of involved voices in it that are, again, invested in making our music community one that is dope and thriving. So, out of those conversations that I was invited into, just realized that, again, there were not as many black and brown voices, there were not as many women, diversity of, how would I say, taste in the room. So, based on that and just how I'm kind of built, is like, yes, we can call out the elephant in the room, but at the same time, I'm always trying to be solutions minded to offer, okay, what can be done about it. So, out of that conversation, pretty much I was in a mindset of, okay, let me call up my diversity of friends, again, across race, across culture, across genre, across discipline, and just for the sake of having what I say, a round table of diversity, being able to speak into initiatives like Music Everywhere would give them the opportunity and the chance of really fully, I would say, serving the entire community. You're talking about Music Everywhere, we're talking about everywhere in Charlotte. It doesn't look the same, you know what I mean? If you go everywhere, it doesn't sound the same. So that was how Fair Play was born, and we're all about envisioning an equitable and a fair music community here in Charlotte. A lot of what we do revolves around music programming, whether it's with the Whitewater Center in Confluence, or whether it's with some exciting stuff we're working on with WDAV. I think the biggest thing we lend to the community is just an awareness. And I think a lot of times we see what we see and the lack of diversity because we live in our silos and we just don't know what we don't know, which again is just, I think, natural to who we are as Americans. Let's put it that way. But sadly, it's the case. So that is kind of core to who we are, is again the people that have a voice and speak into things and can speak into what programming looks here in Charlotte, as well as explore the ideas that come from diverse minds, that just aren't produced in the echo chamber. Um, so yeah, that's who Fair Play is, and that's kind of the things that we're embarking on. But our mind is set on being a resource to anyone who's doing anything musically in the city, who has a heart for togetherness and true community across all the dividing lines.
Yeah, I love it. And I think you and I really got introduced or kind of came into conversation ourselves maybe right before you fully fleshed out the fair play uh,
Got you.
group, I believe. And I'm grateful that Sarah introduced us, and it's been awesome to kind of follow along with what you've been working on, but also just to engage in conversation with you as well. And you've been a great resource, especially at Confluence when we were working with the Whitewater Center on producing that, to truly do exactly what you're talking about. Because it is a shame that we as Americans tend to kind of stay in our lane, I guess, when it comes to crossing cultures and specifically within the music realm. It's been awesome to see all the stuff that you've been involved with, and really, what I love about it is that you come at it not necessarily with a not in a negative approach or saying y'all aren't doing it right, but more so of like, what can I bring to the table, and let's actually do something that makes a difference. And so I
Sure.
applaud those efforts and all that you do. So
Yeah.
um,
And I mean, even to that point, man, it's the first thing I was thinking about mentioning was the fact that a lot of who we are and how we exist are things that we inherited from those who came before. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, we all do have a choice of what we're going to perpetuate or what we're going to change. But again, to a great degree, these are things we inherited that we didn't create. But again, we have the choice of what are we going to decide our contribution will be to the continuance of that or deterring from what has become the norm. And for me, just my, I guess, disposition in all of it is, again, I see myself as a bridge builder. That's who I am. And a lot of that, of the why with that, in some ways, I say I stumbled into, but again, there's choices in that stumbling. But if I quickly describe my own personal journey is like it's a tale of two lives of daily, just like the tale of two cities. Charlotte is like I was born and raised Norfolk, Virginia, in a city, downtown area, black community, low income, and the things that may typically come with that. And halfway through my life, 19 years old, picked me up and dropped me in South Charlotte in a cul-de-sac in Ballantyne. So again, from the corner to the cul-de-sac is the way I put it. And again, you can hopefully put all those dots together of just the culture shift, the shift of dominant race in the environment in which you exist, social economic dynamics at play. It's just pretty much a 180, flipping of the coin for me. And I mean, it was definitely challenging, but also just definitely in retrospect, I'm thankful for it because I had the opportunity to, how would I say, move beyond my silo and enter into another silo, but also be able to experience the value because, again, I take much pride in where I'm from, my family, my friends, my neighborhood, my city. But being exposed to difference in such a way and to be able to build authentic relationships and honestly come to value people and not, how would I say, categorize or box people in was an opportunity for me to, again, have investment and possess value on two sides of the track or two sides of the fence and desire to, man, I wish others had that opportunity, which again motivates me to be a bridge builder. And again, and a lot that keeps us distance is driven by bias. It's driven by things we think we know, but we don't. You know what I mean? Is not driven by truth most of the time. So being able to be, whether it's forced into being able to enter into different spaces, and again, I would say for the sake of not trying to change people, but being open to how you can be changed, perspective wise and life wise, was it was life changing for me. And also when I tell people this story, and definitely with students, and I think just in general in society, is the idea of giving a hand to a black man. You know what I mean? Let me help you up out of the trenches type deal. And it's like, yo, yeah, there are disadvantages. There is inequity. That is a reality. But what I say is what you or what the general public sees as a disadvantage for people of color or black individuals, I also see as you as a white person are missing out. You know what I mean? On the benefit of being in community with others. It may look different. It may not be money, but from a cultural perspective, from a how would I say a internal values perspective, like, yeah, you're missing out on it too. You know what I mean? So this isn't a one-way street that says give a hand to a black man type thing. It's like, nah, you need a hand as well, and you not being in community with others, you're a disadvantage, just as disadvantaged as I am, just in differing ways.
Yeah. Well, and a couple of terms that really stick out to me is that are key in all of this is the awareness, and um, recognizing that within yourself and the struggles or challenges or just whatever life experiences you've encountered, finding the awareness, the self-awareness within those to make the choices moving forward to I don't want to say better your situation, but really just make a difference within the things that you do and apply those things that have influenced you based on your experience into the current structures of whatever it is you're working on, you know. And you've touched on it a little bit, and I always ask folks in this kind of first segment is because the kind of premise of the podcast is really defining or trying to share with others how you define a sense of purpose within what you do. And you know, that's tough to nail down for you, I'm sure, because you were involved in so many different really kind of mission driven initiatives. So I don't know if you have a quick way of articulating that per se, but you know, I'd love to just hear
Yeah,
your thoughts on that.
I think I do. And again, I'll start by landing on again. The purpose of me is being a bridge builder, and building bridges, and honestly equipping others to do the same. Because I don't think it's one bridge and everybody crosses. Like, no, we are all meant to fill in the gaps and build bridges between people. But also, what kind of grounds me is the reality that innately every human being is valuable. Um, Point blank, period. The value of human life and of people in general. Um, and honestly, that is despite, again, what your race is, what your culture, what your history of origin is, what your belief is, who you voted for. Don't even convolute the conversation with that. It's like, no, innately, every human being is valuable. And I believe created in the image of God. And if we just stop there, it's like, okay, I start to question myself and I would question others. And do you believe that in how you treat other people?
Yeah.
Because I believe how you treat other people will tell me if you believe that.
Yeah.
So if if I don't value you, you know what I mean? How we engage will reflect that, you know what I mean? How I stand up for you will reflect that. How I care for you or people like you will reflect how I see you and your value. And again, let's go around the table, regardless of who you are. I think to me, that is the core question. So for me, just from a vision perspective, a values perspective, it's all very much ingrained into the valuing of human beings, and the innate value they have. That isn't something that could be how would I say, earned or deserved. If you do X, Y, Z, you're valuable. It's like, no, if you are an entrepreneur and you revenue X, it's like, nah, you ain't got to get to that. It's just you as a life are valuable. So for me, that's what grounds me, in knowing just the context in which we live in, which is very segregated and devaluing of others. I know that, again, that necessitates me being a bridge builder and helping people peel back the layers on their own perspectives to be able to see that value in others.
Yeah, I love that because I think regardless of you know what background, religion, you know, spiritual beliefs you have, if you can take that very simple statement that you put, you know, in the you'll have to I don't remember it verbatim, but basically in the what was it? Say it again. In the eyes of God, or in the
So just the fact that every human being is created in the image of God.
image of God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because I think that it doesn't matter what religion maybe you believe in. That should be something that everybody should consider because ultimately we all have this at least some sense of divinity within ourselves. And if you can't find that value for not only yourself as a human being, but the value that other human beings bring just from the fact that they are incarnated in being right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's so important. And I think, you know, it's easily misconstrued or just forgotten too much in our society. So
Absolutely. And again, that's what is it like? Again, for Fair Play and for Hugh House and just anything that I do, it's rooted in that value, and it's directly opposing our existence, in a lot of ways, to where because, and I'll also say this, the root of it, I believe, is a devaluing of self.
yeah,
Because it's like when you don't value yourself, you look to others to nitpick and them apart so you feel a little bit better about yourself. So it's like if you value yourself, you don't have to do that. Whether it's the skin color, whether it's belief, whether it's whatever it is, your political stance, when you value who you are and you're secure in that, you don't have to do that. You can actually pursue people in what I call a genuine manner, you know what I mean? And in a manner that is not looking to judge or to scale someone based on what they produce, what they believe, what they do. So again, for me, at the core, I believe that is the intent for humankind, you know what I mean? But obviously we're far off. But again, I see my work as one as one that wants to extend patience, that wants to extend grace, knowing that, again, like I said up top to your question, a lot of these behaviors we've inherited in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? We've inherited these things, and we have the opportunity to unlearn some things, to change some things personally, which I also believe once we change personally can affect the way we do things as a society, as a system, as a country, XYZ. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's a quote. I'm going through this meditation program, and it's, I feel like I've always come from a genuine place, but in a lot of ways, I'm also relearning so many things, or maybe the way they describe it is remembering, because, and one of the quotes that is in the curriculum is once you transform yourself, you can by transforming yourself, you can transform others around you. And I think, it all starts with yourself and peeling back the layers of all of these things that we've learned or inherited and have kind of the experiences that have shaped us up to this. But sometimes you have to forget all of those things to remember really what we were born of,
So absolutely.
That's good
and
stuff.
That's funny that taps into, and I feel like we're diverting maybe a little bit, but
that's all right.
That concept and that view taps into, again, we're in some ways, thankfully, we're in a place right now where there's a lot of racial awakening, if you want to call it that, just to the realities of the impact of race in America. And what I hear you say reminds me of the need and the value of systemic change, and through policy, through legislation, but also what I believe the more important need is the valuing within the context of relationship, and the importance of self and, again, individuals and others. Because, and again, I'm a very both fan. I believe both are necessary.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I believe the systemic change, policies, legislation, without being rooted in relationship, by the individuals who are trying to enact those policies, will be either shallow or will not last long, because they're not rooted in that valuing of others and that understanding. And I think you said being able to produce something is like, what I'll call it is we have the audacity to think that, I don't understand what this looks like in my personal life, but I can do it for our society or for my company or my agency or my city. And it's like, there's a word for that.
Yeah.
For those that are just, but again, I'll leave it at audacity. We have the audacity to think that we can produce something that we don't embody.
Yeah, and I'll say for those that are just listening to this podcast, you should check out the YouTube version of this, because you would have seen Dave's face when he stopped, when he paused right there to fully get the understanding of where he's coming from in this. But no, you're 100% correct, man. I mean, and it's so easy, I think, unfortunately, for folks like myself included, just to carry on about our day to day and not really stop and truly contemplate and you mentioned the realities. I mean, I've touched on this on a couple of solo digs where it's just me and I don't have a guest on here, but what I've come to, and again, you touched on this, we're diverting a little bit, but that's okay, 'cause I love it. But what I'm learning and figuring out and is that realities are different for everybody. And yeah, we have this piece of like a reality that we all live in. But the thing that I'm realizing and is that your reality is very different in a lot of ways from a day-to-day perspective than my reality. And that goes on and on and on for so many different people. And so, it does come back to peeling the layers back for me and myself to truly understand and get back to realizing and remembering that we're all one. It doesn't matter what clothes we wear, what belief system or whatever, where we came from, but ultimately we all are part of this dance we call life. So how do we act on a daily basis and lead our lives to remember that, and also to your point is be that type of person, not just talk about it, and that's what you do so well, I think. I mean, it takes time and effort and a lot of awareness, a lot of awareness. Well, to get back to the conversation that we were talking about earlier too, what's up with Fair Play? What you got going on? I know you can't spill too many beans on what you have with WDAV, but are there any plans, kind of assuming we come out of this quarantine life anytime soon, or and I would add, what is going on with the kind of quarterly mixers that you guys were hosting? Because I met a lot of really cool
Yeah.
people from those.
Yeah. Again, you attended a number of the online events we had once COVID hit with our music community hangs, as well as we started to do a Instagram live open mic, which again was dope to be able to. Honestly, I feel like, well, I know for the open mics, being able to see artists that you just wouldn't have known about here in Charlotte, and even artists outside of Charlotte that caught wind of it. So our plans right now, man, honestly, I would say we don't have too many when it comes to resurrecting the music community hangs, because I'll say for me, one, I think there's an illusion that, oh, now that everybody's at home, they have more time, and that's not the reality. So just it became kind of, just from a bandwidth perspective, something we couldn't sustain in the way we feel like it needed to be. As well as, again, people are zoomed out,
Yeah.
and I feel like in a lot of ways it can begin to defeat the purpose.
Right.
And for us, the community hangs was about, face to face and with people. You know what I mean? Having conversations, and you can only do that but so much in a Zoom room. You know what I mean? So as of now, we don't have any resurrection dates for those two things, but we are thankfully still being engaged and engaging in some cool projects. One that I alluded to with WDAV, that honestly you'll hear a lot more about probably within the next month. But if I did give a teaser, it's the idea of, and again, it's not a crazy idea that you never heard of, but what WDAV is in the process of is, I would say, taking baby steps to address the whiteness issue within classical music, as well as very intentionally amplify the voices of Black and Brown artists in the community. So we're working with them on something that's pretty cool, that I would say, not just musically, but just the presentation of it, I think is going to be dope. And even, I mean, this is in collaboration with Fair Play, but also Hugh House is a big part of it as well, in the presentation and
Nice.
the branding of the initiative or the program, as well as the production of it. So we're very excited about it, man, and we think it has the legs to be something that's not just a one and done. So
Awesome.
So yeah, man, you definitely a lot more information about that, without me fully letting the cat out of the bag, coming in probably the next month.
Cool.
So excited about that. Other than that, I would say right now, man, I think much like yourself, just being a part of a lot of conversations that are going on now, man.
Yeah.
And who knows where they'll land, but I would say my hope is always that, how would I say, that we move beyond the conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's cool. yeah, we talked about that. But when things happen, whether it's, Charlotte Shout Festival, whether it's, I would say, beginning to have performances, and I'll actually quick shout out to Blues, who's doing some dope stuff with the Blumenthal. I think, again, that's moving from talking about it to putting someone in position and giving them the power to be able to actualize some things. So big shout out to my guy Blues, who's definitely on the ground and trying to, how would I say, open some new doors and create some new opportunities for all of the music community and creative community here in Charlotte with the Blumenthal. So yeah, man,
That's cool.
I would say right now we're really focused on this WDAV project that will be happening year long, but you'll start to hear about in the next month or so.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to hear. For those that aren't familiar with WDAV, as they kind of alluded to, they are the Charlotte area region's classical music station, radio station. So that sounds like a really cool project, and I'm anything that you're working on, I'm always excited to see what's going to come of it. So that's great. Well, let's segue a little bit because I know we're all limited on time these days, and I definitely want to dig into segment two, which is where we dive into some language and lyrics, perhaps with this conversation specifically. And I think your experience is a perfect opportunity to kind of share more wisdom for others in digging into these conversations. So I'm going to share this first quote, and most of the listeners know that segment two comes in where we talk about. I'll share some quotes, and then Day and I will kind of pick them apart a little bit. But I pulled this first quote because just where we are in the moment with COVID and pandemic and uncertainty for so many. So it's from Pema Chodron's book. Actually, I have it sitting right here, but it's called When Things Fall Apart. And she says, if there's any possibility for enlightenment, it's right now, not at some future time. Now is the time. What does it take to use the life we already have in order to make us wiser rather than more stuck? What is the source of wisdom at a personal and individual level? And for me, Day, that I think I pulled that because I knew your story, I knew your background. Of course, I did some digging on the website and reminded myself of the story. But you talked a little bit about kind of where you came from and combining those two very different experiences. But I also see some of the stuff that you shared on social media talking about looking back into your past, but really more so being aware of your present. So, what are your thoughts when you hear those quotes and maybe how we can use all of those learned experiences, but more specifically use them in a wise way currently in this present moment?
Sure. Yeah, listen to you read that. The main thing that came to mind was, I would say, the humility that it takes to engage in that, and even beyond humility, or just as I feel like a facet of humility is, how would I say, a subservient positioning of oneself. Is the idea of, again, I believe very much knowing who you are, being secure in who you are is important in this facet of things, but also that knowing yourself and being secure allows you to, how would I say, lower yourself for the sake of not just learning, but also, learning, caring, being empathetic, and I would say ultimately, and again, it can come off wrong in the context of this conversation, but it is what it is. But serving one another, you know what I mean? It removes you from the perspective of serving self to serving others, and the benefit not just to others, but really the reality of it being beneficial to yourself as well. So,
I don't think that came across wrong at all.
well, what I'm hinging on here is, again, that it's the context, and also what I just said applies to this as well, is the context of knowing that historically, in the context of America, slavery, you know what I mean? Hundreds of years of slavery in and being forced into servitude,
Right.
followed by, Jim Crow, XYZ, fill in the blanks. And to have a conversation about servitude may not be the easiest conversation for everyone, you know what I mean?
Right.
And taking that into consideration out of learning about others, out of being ready to care and empathetic towards where someone else is. So even in my saying that was from the perspective of, I know myself as well as others who struggle with the idea of, why am I going to serve this other person, especially if you white? You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So again, just understanding the dynamics that are at play and also the context outside of the truth. You know what I mean? I think truth is true, but also the context in which you share it, how you share it, is very important. So that's why I bring that up. Is like, I don't want it to come off insensitive or in the wrong way. And I think there is, the way I put it is like, there's understanding and then there's overstanding. I believe as an African American or Black American, again, my history as well as my family's history has been one of having to overstand. You know what I mean? Having to exist in a world that doesn't value me, that doesn't look like me, does not sound like me. Um, that is something that comes with, again, the inheritance of me being Black.
Right.
For you, the reality is, from a perspective standpoint, you don't understand things at that level because you've
Right.
never had to.
Right.
Because America has been, how would I say, has been created by those who have come before you and your lineage, you know what I mean? Therefore, it's easier for you to exist in it. There are things that come naturally to you because it comes from you and your family.
Yeah.
But for, again, an African American or a person of color, it's like, every day I have to exist in a space that wasn't created by me, for me, and doesn't value me. And that's just the reality, and I have to maneuver. So it's not enough just to understand those things, but I have to understand how do I how do I also develop and build within this context. So that's kind of why I brought that up. But also, again, within that framework, the hope, I think, is to move us beyond ourselves and what's important to ourselves to understand and even overstand that, if I care for that other person and I value them and I'm willing to humble myself, how I feel in this moment or the way I see things is not what's centered right now. I'm choosing to center someone else in this moment. Um, so
Yeah. That's
so
a
yeah,
great.
that's what I meant, and I think that's very important to take into consideration because I think there's a lot of well-meaning white people who want to engage in this conversation and are engaging, but again, it's just a lot of what I'll call education and
Yeah.
sitting back and sitting at the feet of others to receive what they've never had to consider in their life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, so this is a perfect example of that because as you kind of talked about that initially, the serving of others, that thought didn't even cross my mind as to why it might come across wrong. But then you
Mm-hmm.
just completely changed my perspective by sharing those things that were not even a forethought of mine. So thank you for that, first and foremost. And then one more point on the servitude side. One of the in the meditation practice, there are four what we call soul questions, and one of which is what is my purpose? And that's kind of where the podcast somewhat originated. Actually, the idea came before I even started this meditation training, but the the question of what is my purpose, it goes beyond just that framework of saying what do I have that's unique to me that can allow me to better serve others? And so it takes it into a different context that when I first started asking myself that, I didn't contemplate it in the right way. And I had
Sure.
to dig a little bit deeper to better understand even for myself, but like what do I have that can allow me to actually be of service to others?
Sure.
So it's again peeling back those layers, man.
And that's dope, and I think that's something necessary that we all should make a recurring practice. Because I would say I could probably think of maybe 4 or 5 periods in my life where it was a very specific time where I had to do what I call assessing. Assessing one, again, who I am, what I have, and how it could be put to use. In the context of time and period plays greatly into that. So the latter two instances for me in that was the killing of Keith Lamont Scott. And I'd already been, again, how would I say, I guess another aspect of myself, for those who know me or have read about me, is, and the way I sum it up, is I've been the black rapper guy in white spaces for years.
Yeah.
And
I've heard you say that a time or two.
Right. Right. And that, again, that lended to conversations about why. Why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Why is this important to you? And so that's prior to the death of Keith Lamont Scott. And when that happened, I had to assess, like, oh man, this is happening. And one, again, who am I? What do I have? And how could it be put to use in this context? And from there, I launched a speaking and a performance tour called the Bridge Tour. And it was mainly focused on students, middle, high school. So there was I think it was maybe 14 dates I did, and it was local. And I mean, in Mecklenburg County, what have you. And whether it was at schools, whether it was with youth groups and things of that nature, to have the conversation of what's going on? Yeah. Why are we divided? Do we believe we're divided? What do we believe divides us? You know what I mean? And why that was important, that assessment for me was like, yo, I already have relationships with all these white space leaders, you know what I mean? And again, they live in the same city I do, and they know what's going on. And more than likely, they want to have the conversation, but they probably don't know how.
Right.
So that was me saying, okay, this is how I could be of use in having this conversation and help facilitate this conversation. In following the conversation, it was a performance tour with a lot of these same groups where, again, the messaging from songs, and I know you're going to get into one of them, Imagine, was the theme to drive home the fact that, okay, we see this and we're talking about how can we fix it, you know what I mean? But rarely do we talk about why it is what it is. Because, again, before you can provide a solution, an effective solution, you have to analyze what the problem is. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, that was then. And then, last year for me, with the murder of George Floyd was another time of assessment. Like, all right, we're back here. Let's assess. You know what I mean? Where are we? Who am I? What do I have? And how can it be leveraged to be of better benefit to the circumstances? And again, thankfully, in a lot of ways, it's just a continued progression. It's continued progression. So that led me to, again, take what I do with Fair Play that much further, what I do with Hugh House that much further, what I've always done as Daily that much further, into an extension, which is bridge building consulting. And in essence, what I assess is, okay, I've moved from these white-led spaces, which again, I'm still plugged into and involved in. And in the latter years, as you know, whether it's leadership with Creative Mornings, whether it's, working with the ASC, whether it's, having relationships inside of Foundation for the Carolinas, being on the board of Communities and Schools, is like, okay, I'm in different rooms now. What do these rooms need to be more effective when it comes to building bridge, bringing people together? And that's where the consultant came into play, where legit, if I boil it down, I help those who have a hunger, and most of them are white leaders, you know what I mean, in these organizations and these corporations that lead in our city. And I consult and coach them on how to leverage who they are to be bridge builders within their own, again, space of leadership. Because again, I believe everybody can be, um, but it takes a process of stepping outside of yourself, thinking of others,
Yeah.
and honestly leveraging who you are for the sake of others. Um, so yeah, man, that's kind of, if you want to say, the latest assessment, and what came out of it was Bridge Building Consulting, which again is just a continued extension of,
Yeah.
okay, you bring me in to sing a song, you know what I mean, or rap a song. You bring me into, or Fair Play into consult on programming. All right, what does it look like for you, not just to bring someone in to help you with something, but for you to learn to embody what you're asking us to do? Um, so
That's great
yeah, man,
stuff.
that's, again, I know I went on a slight tangent, but when you say that, it's like, yo, that, I think that's so necessary. It's like, okay, what is it? What's going on? Who am I? What do I have? And how can it be used to
Hmm.
push things in the right direction?
Yeah, intentionality and awareness again, is really important in all of that. So, well, you mentioned it. Let's go on to the lyrics that were pulled from your song Imagine. Did Imagine have Greg Cox in that one too?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'll probably won't get to the other lyric that I pulled, but I'll read this one. This is from your song Imagine that was released in 2017, but did you do this song acoustically with Jason Jett last year too, or was that a
I
different one?
did. I
Okay. Cool.
did. So this song has a longer story. Actually,
Okay.
um, I wrote this song originally when Trayvon Martin died,
Oh wow.
and you know that series is like one after another
Yeah.
after another. And again, it was not that this was a new phenomenon. It
Yeah.
was the media's paying attention. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're covering this stuff. So I wrote it originally then, and then I revived it, Keith Lamont Scott, and then I reproduced it again and added Greg Cox to it. And this was, I think I released it in 2018.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get to a world where you won't have to re-release or reproduce this song for any more reasons. Um,
Right.
but here's the quote I pulled, and I think this is the first line in the song actually. But imagine if we loved more than we hate, and if we weren't judged by the skin on our face, and care for the next man wasn't out of place, because we all know one day we need that same grace. That's a hell of a line, man.
Hey, Taylor, go ahead, flow that one more time, man. Come
Do you
on,
like
man.
that? Yeah.
Come on.
Imagine,
Imagine if we
imagine.
love more than we hate,
There you
and
go.
if we weren't judged by the skin on our face, and care for the next man wasn't out of place, because we all knew one day we need that same grace.
Yeah,
Yeah,
much
man.
better than my flow. So thank you for that.
You almost there, man. You
Yeah,
know, the confidence, you gotta
yeah, yeah,
increase your
yeah,
confidence.
yeah. Well, obviously you just touched on it a little bit, but you know, if you take the inspiration aside a little bit, as much as I don't want to do necessarily, because I think it's is equally, if not more so important than anything, but just the if you take it out of that context and just read it as a line and didn't know that it was inspired by you know Trayvon Martin or Keith Lamont Scott, any of those folks, it's still just such a powerful and profound line that is so simple in so many ways, but also um, so necessary. And I feel like something that we don't specifically as white people don't always embody that, So I applaud the line in that song, and actually listened to several of your tunes and really enjoyed all of them. This was my first time diving into your music, but um, yeah, I mean, are there any other background or thoughts on that other than kind of where you already shared or what you already shared regarding the inspiration?
Honestly, nah, man.
Yeah,
I feel like something I do as a communicator, songwriter, is I try to strike a balance, let's put it that way, with the artistic side of it and like being super creative, but also just simplicity, yo.
yeah,
It's like just read it.
relatable. Yeah,
You ain't got to unpack it much.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
read it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Again, it may mean something different to various people, but at the same time, just read it. It's simple.
yeah.
Just listen to it. It's not a mystery. So yeah, man, there's not really much I can add to it other than I'm saying it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't pull this one. It was a little longer, but the piece you wrote, I don't know if you'd call it a poem or what, after I think it was after George Floyd last year that you shared on
Got you.
Instagram was dope as well, and like it sucks
Yeah.
to say that it was dope because I wish we lived in a world where we didn't need that type of um,
Yeah.
poetry, profound poetry, but at the same point in time, you remind me a lot, and with specifically with your language and lyrics of a buddy. Not really, I was never great friends with him, but growing up with him, Daniel Watts, he went to high school, middle school, high school together, played basketball together. Um, but you should check him out. I tried to find he's on Broadway and like he's up for a Tony Award and played Ike Turner in Broadway's Ike and Tina or whatever that was called. But
Mhm.
his way with words, the two of you would have a hell of a time together, conversing
Dope.
because of that. But I'll shoot you his stuff. You should check him out because I think you would appreciate that as well. And I know we're pushing up on it timeline wise, so let's jump into segment 3 real quick. You already mentioned communities in school, and I ask all of my guests that come on this, what it doesn't have to be a nonprofit or a mission based, but what organization would you like to kind of bring a light to? And you mentioned communities in school. I assume that might be one that you would bring up, but go for it. Tell us either about that one or whatever maybe is on your mind these
Got
days.
you. Got you. Legit. I know we didn't get much time to talk about Hugh House at all,
Yeah,
so I'll use this opportunity to speak about
yeah, it's perfect.
our community activities, which fall under the block. So
Yeah, you got something coming up,
again,
right?
yeah, for those who don't know about Hugh House, we're a creative. Say it again.
Well, I was saying the block. You have something coming up, but now that I say that, I don't know that this is going to air by the time that upcoming program goes live. So,
Got you. Yeah, actually, we just had the block last night.
oh, that's what it was. Okay.
But yeah, so Hugh House, in a nutshell, we're a creative agency. We were launched in the midst of the Arts Parks and Recreation referendum, November 2019. And just, I mean, we had been in conversation probably for a year or so prior to that, just about the need and realizing that, again, there were some things of value in the community that supported creators and artists, but there was a lacking of, again, Black, brown voices, organizations that were focused on supporting the specific needs of our community. So we launched our creative agency then, and our model is very much a social enterprise model. So our for-profit business is very much tied to our community activities. And the block is kind of the umbrella for those things, which is a monthly event, also a digital publication that revolves around Black and brown artists and creative entrepreneur voices, stories, and what I would like to say very specifically, because I think definitely in Charlotte, the arts can be seen as what falls into the philanthropy realm. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's nice. It's a hobby. We can throw some money over there if we want and feel like it. And we're very much laser focused on the fact that, okay, that's cool, but the creative industry is an industry. There's a thriving economic ecosystem, which in the United States that revolves around arts and creatives. And in Charlotte, we are focused on informing, equipping, and empowering our community members to be an active part in developing that here in Charlotte, owning that here in Charlotte as it grows and thrives. So that is kind of our driving force. So legit, when it comes to that, I want to shout out the block. As we're physically sponsored by the Arts and Science Council. So any donations we receive are held by them and tax deductible. And that just helps push forward those efforts of, again, informing, equipping, and empowering specifically our Black and brown artists and creative entrepreneurs in the city. So shout out to the block.
Yeah. I'll link all of that stuff in the show notes, of course, and we'll tag you on all the socials. But Day, man, I really, really appreciate you, all that you do, and I feel so blessed to have been introduced to you and been able to carry on some conversations with you, man. So keep doing what you're doing, and as I've said before, anything that I can do to help, let me know. Maybe once we get back to actually programming some live events and that I'm involved with, we'll have an opportunity to collaborate again for sure. But I appreciate you,
Absolutely,
man. Thank you for being here.
And I appreciate you. I'm proud of you, man, and the steps you're doing as well, man. So keep it up, homie.
Cool. Thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. Be sure to go follow Daily, follow Hugh House, follow the block. I don't know if you have an Insta page or anything for the block, but
Yep.
follow all that
It
stuff.
is. You can follow Hugh House at It's Hugh House. That's ITSHUE House, and you can follow the block at It's ITS the block _.
And then
ITS the block _.
and then Fair Play CLT.
Yep, Fair Play CLT.
And what's your
on
handle?
Instagram. And all of them have websites
Yeah.
as well. So fairplayclt.com or Instagram fairplayclt, and itshughhouse.com for Hugh House, and itstheblock.com for the block.
What about you personally? Do you care if people follow you?
Sure. Daily DAELEE music on all socials, and my website is dae-lee.com.
Sweet.
Holla at me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, everybody go follow Daily and keep up with all the cool stuff he's got going on. And thanks for listening. Drop us a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz if you haven't already. But appreciate y'all being here. And Daily, I appreciate you, man. We'll catch y'all next time.
Peace.